Welcome to American Issues Take One. I'm Tim Apicella, your host, and today's title is, it's not just a leadership change for the military, DOJ, FBI, and CIA. You know, presidents have the prerogative to shake up leadership, and they've done so in the past. President Truman did so in April of 1951 when he terminated General MacArthur from his position. But the President of the United States should have some good reasons to do it, and not the worst of excuses to remove competent leadership. We recently had on Friday the Joint Chief of Staff, General Charles Brown Jr., the Navy Chief of Operations, Lisa Fidell, and they were recently terminated, and really no good reason at all. But what concerns me the most is those positions that you don't see in the headlines. For example, the Inspector Generals, 12 of them were terminated without cause. You had 3 major JAG officers removed. JAG means Judge Advocate General, and they're very important when it comes to advisement of legal matters to the executive office. So the point being, we see a lot of terminations here, and what does it all mean? What's it all going to? And to discuss that, I have with me our esteemed special guests, Jeff Portnoy, partner at KG Study, and Ben Davis, Emeritus Professor of Law at University of Toledo, and Jay Fidell, CEO of ThinkTech Hawaii, and my co-host. Good morning, gentlemen. Jay, especially right to you first. We've seen all sorts of wrecking ball maneuvers of terminations of leadership in various departments and agencies, particularly recently with the military. What concerns me is also the rearrangement of regulatory agencies that are supposed to act independently, like the SEC, the military JAGs, the Inspector Generals, the CFPB, and also the Government Ethics Department, all now reporting to Trump as they move forward with any type of regulatory enforcement. So where does this take us, Jay? Is it the leadership that we should be concerned about, or these underlying regulatory agencies that really keep the guardrails on how government behaves?
All of the above. I mean, if you just go through your own list, and I'm sure there's more, more agencies and more individuals that would be on a complete list, is what you get is he doesn't want regulations, he doesn't want ethics, he doesn't want control. He wants to do everything himself, and he wants to push everybody who has been authorized to control him and regulate him and his friends out. I think what concerns me most, aside from CQ Brown, which is a great concern, we should talk about that. What concerns me most is the people he is going to put in instead, the new appointees. And he won't reappoint the regulators, and he won't reappoint the ethics people, but he'll reappoint the ones who have control and can help him. And within the next week or two, I think you will see a slate of new appointments to fill those slots. And that would be terrifying. That is the most terrifying aspect of this. On CQ Brown was clearly terminated because he's black. It was real simple. And there runs a thread of, anti-DEI, but that means, bigotry and racism. And I think you see that more and more in what is happening under Trump. CQ Brown was an excellent officer, 4-star officer, had people saying that he was the best officer they ever knew. And to take him away and put a 3-star who has already retired in there, not nearly as qualified as Brown, is really tragic, because this guy is in the chain of command between Trump and, over 1 million people. Actually, the DOJ is something like 2 or 3 million people. It's a huge agency, and it controls the weapons. It can be used and misused all around the world. And so if he has a pass-through type of chief of staff, he can do anything he wants. And that's what we're getting to. So the bottom line in all of this is that he doesn't want anybody in the way of his increasing exercise of power.
Is that what this is? A consolidation of power? Is that the power play here?
Consolidation suggests that the elements of power existed before and they are being brought together. I don't think consolidation is quite the right word. He's increasing his power, and he's creating a sort of a level of people who will just listen to him and do whatever he says. That's what's happening. I mean, for example, DOJ, as we spoke before the show, He could have gone to Congress. Mike Johnson will do anything. He could have gone to Congress and had a department created. He could have gone to Congress and had Elon Musk confirmed, but he didn't do that. And the reason is he doesn't care about Congress. He doesn't want Congress in the picture. He wants to use it when necessary, but if he had his choice, he would not use it at all. That's what we see. It's Trump running everything, micromanaging everything.
All righty. Ben, I'd like to get your opinion on this, and Jeff, I'm going to go to you with the same. What is your take on Trump's move to do the regulatory agencies and get rid of them, particularly the JAGs and the Inspector Generals? Is that troublesome to you, or is it just standard order of business for presidents to do that sort of thing? Ben.
Some things may be standard and some may not, but just to speak to the JAGs, these are the top JAGs. They basically do two things. They advise the war fighter on what they can do under the laws of war, and then they also enforce the Uniform Code of Military Justice. So if you get what I would call a more compliant JAG, you're basically going to have things that are going to be worse, right? I mean, there's a lot of illegal orders will not be told, people will not be told that certain things are illegal orders. They will be allowed to happen, and there will be things that happen out on the battlefield if there ever are any. And there is a kind of reciprocal effect, is that when you do stuff, we do stuff that's also going to happen too, and you just kind of have a degradation that's there. Same with the Uniform Code of Military Justice, to the extent that things are not prosecuted or and there it encourages what's called, I think the term is force drift, okay, where people just, there's a tendency for more and more force to be used unless there's a limit that's set there. So yeah, that JAG thing is something that really concerns me. The other thing is that this idea of having all of the regulations have to go to the OMB before they're put into the Federal Register sounds a little arcane, but I was looking at something recently that says that, a lot of things are not triggered until they're in the Federal Register, right? So if OMB does not actually put it in the Federal Register, then the spending and other things can't happen. So it's actually a very powerful control mechanism that's being put in place by having all of that centralized. In the past, each agency would send out its regulations to the Federal Register, but having it centralized basically makes the person at the OMB be the person who decides what's going to start the duty to pay. Finally, I just would like to point out, I think it was yesterday, there's Judge Ali, who read the Riot Act to the lawyer from the government about the disbursement of the USAID monies. It's close to my heart because my dad worked there 35 years. And he basically said by 11:59 p.m. tonight, that stuff better be out, those checks be written. And it'll be interesting to see what happens by 11:59 tonight. That'll be a real signal of just how lawless we're going towards.
Would that put us in a constitutional crisis if they did not, if it's ignored the ruling?
Well, yeah. So what I'd say is that we're watching a coup, okay? Like, constitutional crisis is a kind of euphemistic American thing that is, kind of reassuring because the word constitution is in there, right? But it's a coup, okay? In the old style coup. So it's beyond a constitutional crisis. It's basically creating, at least to me, a state of no rules apply, because we're in a special kind of state. We're in a kind of emergency, okay? And if no one is going to stand up and resist or oppose what Trump is trying to do, then that basically becomes the way we live, in a tyranny. And that's, and there's nothing I can say more than that, because if you try to, get out of the streets too much, if somebody, there'll probably be some agent provocateur who'll be put in there to do some kind of violence, and that'll become an excuse for the military shooting people, because the military are not the head of the military, the Secretary of Defense.
Well, that's the importance of JAG.
Yeah.
Yeah. All righty. Thank you,
I
Ben.
want to add something, Tim. I want to add something to what Ben said. Yesterday, we interviewed Ann Lopez, the Attorney General of Hawaii. She has 5 cases going in the company of 23 other attorneys general from around the country, and they've been able to get some TROs. So I asked her, "Is the administration abiding by the TROs?" And without hesitation, she said, "No, they're not."
Okay, that's not good. Jeff, what's your take on some of these elimination of leadership? But more importantly, what's your take on the cutting of JAGs and inspector generals? And what do you think the motivation is for that? Do you agree with Jay and Ben on that point?
I want to hear what the dog has to say first,
Okay.
because I think he or she has had a lot of very profound barking in response to both of your comments. Is there any time left for me? Oh, there's still some time? Okay, good. Listen, when the President of the United States posts a video, as he did last night, of the new Gaza resort area, and you enter it through a giant golden statue of Trump, that's all you need to know. All this other stuff is irrelevant. Listen, things we should all hope continue to get worse. Look at what's happening in the polls. Last week, I had no optimism at all. The more things get worse, the more optimistic I'm becoming. The country is finally realizing the independence in this country. Forget the Democrats, they are worthless and toothless. Let's put them aside. And forget the MAGA Republicans. They are worthless and worthless. But the middle is finally realizing what's going on. His rating is the lowest of any new president since they took polling. Yes, it's better than it was when he took office. Oh, it's worse than it was when he took office in 2017, but it got a little better then. He's down under 50%. He's almost at 42% in some of the polls. People are beginning to realize that their neighbors and their friends are being fired from their jobs. They're beginning to realize that the tariffs and the threats of tariffs are causing prices to go through the roof. By tomorrow, they're going to realize that rich people like me are going to get a massive tax cut, and the middle class is going to suffer. People are going to realize that the deficit is going to go into, is there something over trillions, by the way? I never know what comes after trillions. People are watching Musk and his 5-year-old and his chainsaw. So guys, let's get it worse. Let's get it so bad that people realize whether it's a coup or a pre-dictatorship, of course he's going to replace everybody and anybody, no matter what their position is, that doesn't agree with Mr. Trump. That's been his life for decades. The courts, I wish the attorney generals good luck. They have nothing better to do than get a quick TRO, of which they haven't followed one yet, and they won't. What is the court going to do? Hold the president in contempt? Is Congress going to impeach him over the next 2 years? He has no controls, none. Go to court, hope that someday the Supreme Court, God forbid it ever gets there, but it will. It could get there by tomorrow, by the way, on this fund everything by 11:59 tonight. So guys, I'm listening to the dog because I think the Democratic strategy, I heard this from James Carville last night, and I thought it was brilliant. He thinks the Democratic strategy, and he's not an outsider, is to lay low. Let everything possible go wrong with this country so that the Democrats have a chance to potentially take back 3 seats in these elections, continue to have the states do what they can. So get ready. Trump's not backing down. Even after all the court decisions today, he says we're going to fire more. We're going to fire anybody that won't sign the Pledge of Allegiance to Donald Trump. That's the next thing we're going to change. Forget under God. It's going to be under Trump.
Okay, follow-up question here for you, Jeff. If things deteriorate to a point where nothing's operational, things are in disarray, doesn't that give Donald Trump what he really wants is to say, only, see, I told you, only I can fix this mess. And doesn't that give him more dictatorial authority and power?
Well, assuming he can avoid people saying, how did we get in this mess?
Okay.
I mean, he's created the whole thing. This should not come as a surprise. He ran on this. He ran on immigration. He ran on taking over the government. He ran out of getting rid of all the bad people that went after him in government. He's put subservient people in every strong position. U.S. attorneys, Justice Department, get rid of the JAGs, get rid of military people he doesn't like. I mean, who's shocked by this? It's just the beginning. And Jay's right. We only hear about the top people. Look who he's putting in as undersecretaries, people who don't make the news. They are. Did you see the U.S. attorney for New York? What a buffoon this guy. He's not even capable of handling a divorce. And he's the new U.S. attorney. Why? Well, because according to him, this is new. Is he the country's attorney? No. He sits there and says, I am Trump's attorney. Hopefully he'll get paid. Hopefully he'll get paid because none of them do.
All right. Jeff, thank you. Moving on to you, Jay. When Nixon removed the top AGs, they called it the Saturday Night Massacre. It wasn't just the AGs, it was also some DOJ personnel. Yet when these JAGs or these inspector generals have been removed, yeah, we saw a couple of headlines and that was about it. But these are critical positions that have been removed that basically are the guardrail of democracy, or certainly how the military operates and our justice system operates. Why do you think the media is not really putting all that much time and energy into what Jeff just said, that the under positions that are not getting the headlines? It's just the leadership positions. Your thoughts?
What media?
Okay.
I think I'm Jeff. You're much too optimistic for me.
I decided to be optimistic this week.
The fact is the media is crashing around us right now. I mean, MSNBC, which was, my favorite liberal station, is no more. They've reorganized the whole thing. And then, of course, you have the Washington Post, where Jeff Bezos says, well, we're not going to cover anything that's adverse to Trump. I mean, really. And all these people are running for the hills. They're joining podcasts and the like, trying to have some other kind of limited effect on public opinion. But the fact is that as we go forward and as these things happen, and as Trump hollows out the government and hollows out anybody who can regulate and control him, we will hear less about that. We will hear less opinion against that. And I think he's aware. He's aware of this process and he's dealing with it by crushing the media. So watch out. We can have this conversation today, but, in a week or two, it may not be so easy to identify, what he's doing. We may not understand or hear about it.
Good point. Excellent point. Ben, with the reduction of regulatory oversight, particularly with, other agencies that we haven't even discussed here today, I'm thinking of the SEC, I'm thinking of the FDA for drugs oversight, product safety, food purity. Where does that take us if Donald Trump is successful of reducing personnel that is critical to the mission of those agencies? Do we take what Carville has suggested as a wait and see approach, that people start to die, product safety starts to kill people? Our food supply is being poisoned by one drug or another, or some contaminant. Where do you think this takes us?
Well, I think we're already there. It's not that it's taking us. I don't know if you noticed, but there's a kid who died down in Texas of measles, who was unvaccinated. That just happened. the women's mortality rate in some of these states has gone up 30, 40, 50%. We already have people dying, okay? And so the question is, with what's going to happen here, if they're not doing their jobs, then people will die and get sick. That's and at levels that we will, which will be shocking if we can even hear about it in the news, right? But and you got to understand that these folks don't really care about it. You know, I remember reading somebody in the White House was really ticked off on the USAID stuff because they keep showing us pictures of these little kids dying in Sudan. You know, I mean, that was the attitude. It was like bad publicity. It wasn't about, you know, the horror of that moment, you know. There is one thing that I think maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm just being an optimist here too, Jeff, today to be with you, which is when the United States switched sides to support Russia. I think that there were some Republicans who really, you know, that was like really too much. I mean, that's a hell of a switcheroo. And I've been reading recently. There's a whole bubbling up again, but this kind of interesting of people who are former KGB who say that Trump's been, you know, since he was 40, he's been a Russian plant. Okay. And so that's bubbling up again. But I tell you, when he did that, I think a lot of people around the world and here, even in the Republican Party, were like, what? What? You know?
Hey, listen. He's just wielding his economic power all over the world and in the United States. Everything is about money. Everything is about profit. Just look what he's done in the last few days. You can now buy a golden visa for $5 million if you are a rich person living anywhere else other than the United States. That gets you automatic lifetime entry into this country for $5 million. If you're a poor Guatemalan whose family has been subjected to terror by drug dealers, you're going home. Look what he's doing with, it's going to happen today. Look what he's happening with Ukraine. He's forcing him to sign a deal that gives us most of their economic riches, gives us, the United States, access to all of their minerals in return for whatever kind of help we will give them to rebuild. And Europe, are they standing up? Look what just happened in Germany. I mean, you know, Macron comes here, and give him a little bit of credit for contradicting Trump. There's one lie after another. They're in the thousands by the week, by every speech. I mean, now I'm not optimistic anymore. You've made me very sad, Ben.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You know,
I'm leaving. I'm going to visit my daughter in Bermuda.
not yet, Jeff. We're going to do final thoughts. We're going to conclude here because
No, I wasn't leaving the show.
Oh.
Leaving the country.
Oh, okay. Glad you clarified that.
No, I'll stay on the show no matter where I am. No.
God bless you. Okay, you know what? We've run out of time, and I'm going to go for final thoughts on this topic, but I really appreciate identification of what the underlying issues are, and I think you gentlemen have done a great job of ferreting that out. So, Jay, without hesitation, your last thoughts, please.
I connect the dots around the Roy Cohn style. Double down. If you get caught, you know, deny it and double down. And I would leave you with this thought, and I think it's being proven out right now. He's into power, but power begets more power. The more outrageous, the more crazy, unhinged things he does, and the more he doubles down on those things, the more powerful he gets. People are amazed. Europe is amazed. Many people in this country are amazed. Incredible what's happening. But that somehow makes him more powerful, because the message from him is, I can do anything I want, stand aside. And I think that's happening.
All right. Ben, your thoughts.
So I just think it's all about the corruption. Okay. I mean, it's about making a lot of money off of the government. And I saw Marjorie Taylor Greene was talking about the bureaucrats. They're getting paid by U.S. tax dollars, and they're not really making money. And I said, "Gee, Marjorie, aren't you paid by those U.S. tax dollars too?" I mean, I'm just, hey, I'm just a guy here, right? But so I think it's all about the corruption. I do, however, think that it's important to dissent and oppose. Now, whether it succeeds, I think it's really important for people to do that now because it has effects. It does have effects, not as much as we'd like, but we're seeing some hesitancy happening with people as they realize that they're at risk of losing their positions.
Righty. Mr. Portnoy, you had the last word for the day's show.
As farmers begin to realize that they can't sell their crops because of tariffs, as auto workers who came out for Trump, including unions, begin to realize that the tariffs are making cost of producing vehicles in the United States 10% more, and consumers have to pay that 10% more. As an election in Virginia, where all the fired federal workers are living, comes up, as each one of us now today, they say the price of eggs won't go up again, won't go down again until the late summer. As all of these things continue to happen, people will not care about democracy because they don't understand it, but they'll care about these economic issues, and they are compounding day by day by day as the rich get richer, including the Facebooks and the Amazons and the Bezoses and the rest of the country. Everybody under the top 10% see their taxes not move or go up while everyone else is going down. Democracy inadvertently will become the beneficiary.
I want to add something, Tim.
No,
I
you
wanna
didn't go
add-
last. I went last. That's not fair.
Be as it may, he owns the station.
Okay.
Okay, Jay.
All these events, theoretically, just as Carville said, the worse it gets, the more people will react. And I would agree theoretically with that. However, they're not going to know. Watch the media. These things will happen, but it won't be in the media. So that kind of, undermines the whole process that Carville is talking about.
Jay, they'll know when they go buy a new car, or when they go to the supermarket, or when they meet their neighbor who's on unemployment. That's how they're going to find out. I don't disagree with you. The media is being challenged like never before. And you're right. But they'll find out because their neighbor will tell them, or they'll experience it themselves.
Well,
Better they find out that it's happening nationally than just with their neighbor. Now that makes for a collaboration. Just the neighbor doesn't.
And I will add before I sign off here that if it truly is up to independents to speak out, spark up from what they're seeing and happen in rapid order and fashion, maybe sooner is better than later to voice their opinions and protect our democracy as it is. So we'll see, because we all know from history, if you allow these grievances to go deeper and fester, you'll start seeing violence in the street for unanswered grievances. And that's not where we want to be as a nation. So with that, I'd like to say, and I'm going to take the final word on that one. I would like to say thank you to my two special esteemed guests, Jeff Portnoy, Ben Davis, and always to my co-host, Jay Fidell. Hey, join us next week. And until then, aloha.